And welcome everybody to Coffee and Conversation with the Artist. It's a monthly series of artist talks that was started by the Sterling Society in 2007, the first program that the Sterling Society kicked off. And it used to be held at the Art Center in one of the studios with actual coffee and live presentations. The Sterling Society is an auxiliary membership organization that supports the Dunedin Fine Arts Center. My name's Diane Van Dusen. I'm a Sterling Society board member and a volunteer at the Art Center and this year's Coffee and Conversation coordinator. Thanks to the wonders of technology and the generous donation from Diane Wheatley Giolati, another Italian on our website here today. She's this year's sponsor and pays for the Zoom account. So we've been able to keep this program alive, at least virtually. While we look forward to welcome you all back to the Art Center to enjoy coffee and face-to-face interactions with our artists and art lovers, we appreciate your continued support of the wonderful artists we bring to you each month until that time comes. Sarah Kessinger, Sterling Society Board President, is here to share some information about other activities that the Sterling Society and the Art Center are involved in. So Sarah, go for it.
Okay. I just would like to thank Maria, first of all. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I know being on Zoom is certainly different than what we've had to do in past years, but now we're at a year and we've done this and it's been quite successful. And so we're proud of it and the fact that we were able to continue so that we didn't have to stop Coffee and Conversation. But one of the things that we have going, the Sterling Society, is that we've got a founders luncheon, which we started also back in, I believe, 07 or 08. And this is our 14th year, so I'll let you do the math. And we're celebrate people that have made a contribution, not money, contribution. That would be time, that would be effort, that would be sweat equity, that would be a lot of things, and also money. Some people can do that, but we honor those people and make it a wonderful luncheon, and it is still going after 14 years. And it's amazing to me that this year we were able to offer inside, outside, and virtual all at the same time. And people would be coming on and watching it from the comfort of their home. And if they ordered food with it, they can pick up their lunch at the Art Center. It's pretty awesome. Or they can go to the golf club and sit very distant. We were able to actually have, since it was inside and outside, we've got about 50 people. And 10 are going to be outside and 40 want to be inside, and they were going to be so distant they'll have TVs all over everywhere just to watch it. But it should be just awesome. So we're really excited about it, and we thank everybody that has signed up for that. We really do appreciate their support. We probably have as many people not coming that just made a donation, and it's really nice because the Art Center has had a difficult time. It's been really hard. A lot of people have lost their jobs because of COVID, and but we have the honor of saying that DFAC has not had one case. You walk in, they take your temperature, you don't get in without that, and everybody is distant, very distant. Their meetings are in one of the galleries so that they can sit about 10 feet apart. That's how they do their staff meetings. So welcome to Coffee and Conversation. And Diane, I'll turn it back over to you, but we appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. And I just want to tell everyone that Sarah is this year's patron of the arts, being honored at the Founders Luncheon. I know she wouldn't pat her own back and say that, but each year we select some local phenomenal person that has helped the Art Center and the community of Dunedin. And this year it is Sarah Kessinger. So congratulations, Sarah. And I'll see you there Friday. Okay. Well, everybody, I think, pretty much understands the mute system, but what I'll ask you to do, in case you're not muted yet, is to mute yourself during the presentation, and you can use the chat button to pose questions if things come up as Maria goes through her slideshow, and your questions then will be fielded at the end of her talk. So, I think I've gone through all that, and now to get on with our main event here, Maria. Maria Saraceno is a sculptor with a master's in fine arts from the University of Florida, Tampa, obtained in 2005. She is originally from Italy. She has lived most of her life in the US and now lives in St. Petersburg. Her early work dealt with issues of marginalization associated with being a bicultural person. Socio-political issues informed some of her later sculptures and video installations. Maria has exhibited a solo show at, I might mangle the pronunciation, Raggio Verde in Lecce, Italy, where she showed bronze and wire sculptures. She exhibited in Providence, Rhode Island, and with an installation of her tropical pods in the entrance of the University of Rhode Island. Maria has also exhibited at the Tampa Museum of Art, the Atlantic Center for the Arts in New Smyrna Beach, Edge Zones in Miami, Little Sparrow in Atlanta, Gala Corina in Tampa, the Museum of Fine Art in St. Petersburg, the Contemporary Art Museum in Tampa, the Dunedin Fine Arts Center, and many other venues around Florida. Recently, she's had 2 solo shows at HCC in Ybor City. So it's my pleasure to welcome Maria Saraceno to this month's Coffee and Conversation program. Thank you, Maria.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank Dunedin Fine Arts Center for the opportunity to be with you today. I really appreciate that. And some of this would be a repeat, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself before I show you images of my work, because they will put my work in perspective for you. So I was born and raised in Italy and lived there until I was 19, at which time I immigrated to the US. So I promptly got a job and continued my education, pursuing a master's degree in hearing science. Proceeded to set up a private practice as an audiologist and worked in that field for 20 years. At which time my oldest child left home to go to college, and she left a huge hole in my heart. And I decided that I needed to fill it by following another passion. So I went back to school and got another bachelor's because I didn't have enough prerequisites from my first one. And then eventually got a master's in fine arts. So I started dealing with my feelings of being marginalized. When you are a bicultural person, you don't completely belong to either culture. And when I started making work, I decided that I needed to deal with those issues. And one way to do it was through art making. So this piece is called Homeless Maria. She is a life-size sculpture based on my dimensions, made out of copper strips that I riveted together. The form is covered in window screen, and she's holding a bird's nest in her hands. She's wearing a fur collar and fur cuffs, and her hat is made of primarily copper that I hammered, and the brim of the hat is made with different woven metals. So even though I was living comfortably, I was actually homeless. This piece also deals with my feeling of being torn between the 2 cultures. It's made out of 2 types of wood. One is maple, the other one is walnut, that I laminated and then carved. And each color of wood represents the 2 different cultures that I belong to. The glass in the middle signifies my feelings of being torn between the 2 cultures, as if I have to make a choice. But you know, I was working on integrating the 2 and making the new me that I decided to be a hybrid, excuse me, a hybrid of the 2 different cultures. So as part of being marginalized, I also felt voiceless. So I made molds, several molds on my lips, and I poured hundreds and hundreds of lips in cement. Then I made a video of my mouth speaking, making a statement and about being voiceless. And I projected the video minus the voice onto the mounds of lips. Doing this work helped me deal with these feelings that I had. And from there, I was ready to move on. So while I was in graduate school at USF, I was very fortunate to be exposed to different ways of looking at art and different ways of thinking and talking about art. One of the main influences on my work at the time was Rosalinda Borcila, who was a Romanian artist teaching at USF and who was an activist. So until that point, I thought art was paintings and sculpture and didn't realize that art could be an action or a small gesture or a micro performance or a performative act designed to affect change. So I decided that to work in that new area of art. And for my master's fine arts project, thesis project, I decided to go and to a street corner, commercial sterile street corner in the community where I lived, the Circle K corner, and transform that spot into a place where people could gather, similar to a piazza in Italy, where people normally gather to play cards, to chat on a regular basis without making a plan. It's a spontaneous kind of gathering. That's the name for this piece, Spontaneous Civility. So I went with a table and 4 chairs. My husband was a wonderful collaborator because it was very uncomfortable to go stand on the street corner and cook. So I was cooking pasta every Sunday for 4 months because that's part of the tradition I came from. Pasta was a main meal on Sundays, and it was a time to celebrate being with the family. So cooked pasta, and people would look at me and wonder what I was doing and ask me if I was associated with a restaurant, if I was charging. And I would say, no, just come and share a plate of pasta and conversation. And by the end of the 4 months, we had 7 tables and 25 chairs at that corner because people started coming regularly because they enjoyed the idea of getting together and sharing this special time, just conversing and sharing a plate of pasta. During graduate school, while this project was going on, I met with a visiting professor who was very enthusiastic about the project, but who pointed out to me that my touch as a sculptor was absent. So I thought about it, and then decided that I would make a special tablecloth for the event. The tablecloth in Italy was always part of our meal. We would never eat on a bare table. And decided that pearls are something that we use for special occasions. And this certainly was a special occasion when people gather and share conversation is a special occasion. So we decided to stitch pearls onto pieces of cloth that belonged to my mom. So I was integrating, again, always this struggle of integrating the past and the present, my initial culture, my culture of origin, and the culture where I live now, and on old dish towels and tablecloths of her. And we started stitching the pearls onto the cloth at the corner. But once the project was over, we were far from finished. And we would then meet in my house weekly to continue adding pearls to patches of cloth. So this is a partial tablecloth here. It took 15 years to complete the project. Mostly women, but some men also participated, people from out of town, people who were here temporarily. And 15 years later, we had a completed project. In the meanwhile, a community had formed, and this community wanted to give to another community. So we decided to exhibit it at HCC in Ybor City. And not only to exhibit it, but to use it as a fundraiser for college scholarships for HCC students. And we raised $8,500. And how we raised that money is by these special objects on the wall here are coffee filters. For the 15 years, I always served coffee when people met at my house and saved the filters. And towards the end of the project, I asked every participant who I was still in contact with to embellish the coffee filter. And so we sold them during the exhibit for $50 each. And some very generous donors bought them for $1,000 each. So that's how we raised $8,500 for HCC scholarships. And these are snapshots of the people who participated. Not all of them, there were many more in the project during the 15 years. So I was turned on to activism in art and decided that after I graduated, I wanted to continue working in that vein. I lived in St. Pete Beach at the time, and every time I drove by a bus stop that's across the street from the Don Cesar, which is a fancy big hotel in St. Pete Beach, I would see groups of people wearing Don Cesar uniforms gathered there waiting for the bus. So I was curious about it, and then I figured out these were workers and they didn't own cars and they were waiting for the bus to go home. And I thought, after a long day, cleaning rooms, they're waiting in this heat, I should do something for them. So I had another wonderful collaborator in this project, Caitlin McDonald. She's sitting there on the bench, and we took a table and a tablecloth, refreshments to the bus stop, drinks and refreshments consisting of drinks and snacks, and hand cream. And we offered the housekeepers a hand massage. So it took a little while to gain their trust, because they thought, this is weird and why would you give us a hand massage? But I saw it as a piece of social justice and something that I needed to do for them. Kind of a Marxist, seen through a Marxist lens. I got a grant, an individual artist grant from Pinellas Arts Council. And we gathered here twice a week for 4 months again. I'm not sure why I'm choosing 4 months, but it happened for both projects. I wanted it to be long enough that it would have longevity, but a few weeks would not have been enough. So 4 months sounded like the right length of time. And not only did we give them hand massages and refreshments, but we also gathered their stories with their permission. We videotaped them while they told us about their life and where they came from. This was all imported labor. These workers were brought in by the Don Cesar with temporary contracts for 3 months or 6 months, mostly from the islands. And then they would go back home, and Don Cesar housed them in in apartments, 4 employees to an apartment. In fact, we rode the bus with them one time and went to one of their apartments. The project got Best Activist Art Project from the Weekly Planet. And this is a picture of 3 of the ladies that we became closer to. We invited them to our house to have dinner. We socialized with them. And I even visited one of them in Jamaica for a day. We still keep in touch. So this is 16 years later, and we still keep in touch. So to summarize, it was social justice. The stories collected on the video were projected on sheets. So I went to the Don Cesar and I asked them for sheets that they discarded because of a stain or a tear. And they gave me hundreds of sheets, and we folded them in the shape of the bus stop and projected their stories, the videos of the stories, onto the sheets. And this project, when it was exhibited at Edge Zones in Miami, got the critics pick for the Miami Herald. And the other one was Best of the Bay Award for Activist Art by the Weekly Planet. So a shift in gears. Another big influence on my work was a professor at USF, Richard Beckman, who nurtured in me the love for form. And he was an object maker. And he just shared with me his love for making objects. I was just always fascinated with wire for some reason. So I decided at some point to just start playing with it and just taking 2 pieces of wire, cut 4 in 4 inches lengths, and then develop a full-scale sculpture. This is about 6 feet tall. this piece. It's called a Debutant. So about 30 some years ago, I attended a Debutante ball as a spectator. And I was just really struck by the whole event, and it just never left my mind, 35 years later, it resurfaced, and I thought about what it meant, and it seemed like such an archaic patriarchal type of thing. These young girls wore beautiful gowns. They looked like brides, but it seemed to me like they were put on the market through the debutante ball. So I needed to express my feelings about it, and I did it by making this piece. So just started with 2 pieces of wire. This is a detail, and ended up with a larger than life size sculpture. Using the same technique, I made a piece called Painful Sundays. All of my work is based on an emotion that I have experienced, or on a critique of a social political type of critique. So this was based on an obligatory get together that we had every Sunday with the extended family, where the dynamics weren't always healthy or happy. And so it's called Painful Sundays. This piece is about also 6 feet tall and about 5.5 feet in width at its widest point. It's hanging in a beautiful garden in South Tampa. This is a daytime view. The previous one was a nighttime view. And that's how it looks, and seen from a distance. It's just really spectacular, especially at night. So continuing with the wire work, I made a chair a little bigger than life size called Easy Chair Activist. This talks about the individual who will sit in his or her armchair and be critical of everything that is going on around him or her, but really not do anything about it. So it's all barbed wire and bird legs that I manufactured. So I have been fascinated for a long time with the human garments that we wear, garments that convey a social status. As an example, designer clothes, but garments can also be a tool for oppression, and also the control by the fashion industry to tell us what is trendy, what we need to wear, and how we succumb to it. So I made a series of clothes that little figures. They're very intimate, a very intimate scale. They're maybe 14 inches high, with real chicken feet. Well, cast in bronze. I used real chicken feet to cast out of, and the outfits just express different styles. So it's a critique of the fashion industry. And I made a series of them, probably about a dozen. I worked in bronze for a while, and I taught bronze at USF, bronze casting. So continuing with this idea of the garment and fashion, this is it's a life size dress made out of metal screen with an impossibly small waist. And it's filled with birds. These are not real birds, of course. They're bird forms that are used to decorate. Women are often used as decorative objects, so there's the parallel there. And I stitched them tightly into cloth that belonged to garments that were given to me by different people, so that the garments contained the essence of the people who wore them, their sweat, their aspirations, their desires, their dreams. So why are they trapped in cloth? So while I was traveling, and I was on a layover at the Gatwick Airport in London one year, for the first time I saw in person a woman dressed in a burqa. And it made such an impression on me. Seeing that on TV or in a newspaper is a completely different experience from seeing it in person. I couldn't see any part of that woman. And even there was a mesh covering the eyes, just a glimpse of the eyes back there. And it's just really, it just made an impression on me. As soon as I came back home, I was stitching birds inside cloth. So I was trapping them the way that woman seemed to me to be trapped by the clothing that she was wearing. So this is a detail of the piece where the corset is totally filled with birds. Continuing with the birds, I have to do several pieces to get things out of my system sometimes. I had a solo show in Ybor City at HCC, and I've stitched again a bunch of birds inside cloth, again, the same thing, garments that were given to me, used garments, and then encased them in plates of acrylic, half-inch thick, that the plates were about 1 foot by 1 foot squares, and then display them in this way. So the birds are trapped not only in cloth, but they're trapped between two plates of acrylic. And the acrylic is to represent the glass ceiling that we can sometimes set. So in appearance or at first glance, the color is very attractive and the form is attractive. And that's something that I like to do in my work, is seduce the viewer with color and form, draw the viewer in to look at my work more closely, but then deliver a message that is a sober message, sometimes a dark message. This is a detail of the bird tiles. There were 72 of them. This work is about feeling objectified as a woman. And so I made 12 nipples out of bronze. I didn't cast them out of really of anybody's body. They were just free-formed. And I hand forged steel hooks and hung them by the hooks. And this is my expression of feeling objectified, a detail of that. They're hanging behind me. I don't know if you can see them. I used to have a dream/nightmare. And in this dream, I would wave my arms wildly, and then I would start flying. And I had this over and over and over. And sometimes in this dream, I carried my family to safety on my back. And just imagine how hard it must have been, not only for me to fly, but I was carrying my children. And finally decided that I needed to make a piece to figure out or to work out this dream that I was having. So I made a bust that is based on my measurements. And the wings are made of feathers that I collected during my walks. And each feather is hand stitched onto a wire screen. And there is a poem engraved on the bust, on the torso, that my husband wrote about my experience, that I described to him in detail about this wanting to fly, but not making it. So that's the title, Unairborne. And after I made that piece, I stopped having that dream. So it worked. So now on a lighter note, but no less conceptual, is my seed pod work from the palm trees that I collect here in Florida. We have lots of different palm trees, and each produces a different kind of seed pods. So the seed pods, when they are on the palm tree, are initially tubular, and the seeds are developing inside them. When they're ready to come out, it's just a breathtaking view. The pod opens up, and thousands of seeds spill out. And those are the new baby palm trees. So seeing this work through a feminist lens, I thought about how in some cultures, women are valued for their reproductive ability and discarded after they can't reproduce anymore. And I thought, well, these are the reproductive vessels of the palm trees. And it's a shame for them to be discarded. So I will gather them and paint them and cover them in a resin and give them new life and really permanence, because once they're covered in this resin, they will last forever. So this became a wallflower. And this is a detail of the center. It's aluminum. And I had a solo show in Manatee where I displayed about 10 or 12 of these flowers. So it's reimagining, reusing nature, giving new life to these reproductive vessels, and even making a functional object, such as a chandelier. So that completes my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be happy to take questions. I'm not hearing anyone.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, now I hear you, Diane.
Yeah, I just unmuted myself, and
Okay.
anybody who wants to just pose a question, since I didn't see people typing in the chat section, but just go ahead and pop in and we'll see how it works. So I see.
Yeah, this is Vivian. I don't have a question, but I want to thank you so much for contextualizing the pieces of art that I have been seeing for years, and also the chronology. For me, puts your beautiful work in a different perspective. So thank you very much for this thoughtful presentation.
Thank you for your comments, Vivian. I really appreciate them.
Maria,
Yes, hi, Karen.
hi. I had forgotten, but the exhibit in Ybor with the birds in the plexiglass, why did you name that exhibit canceled?
Because the flight of the birds had been.
Oh, Maria?
Yes.
Oh, it sounded like maybe you got away from your mic there for a second.
Oh,
I
no,
didn't.
I'm here. So the flight of the birds had been canceled. They were trapped. They couldn't fly. And a really funny thing that happened, because I called the show canceled, and I sent out postcards, invitations to everybody I knew. And the title was canceled, and it was on the front of the postcard. A lot of people assumed the show had been canceled. So I had to deal with that, you know. As I got to talk to people, I realized that they thought the show had been canceled, but that was the name of the show.
We have a question that came in the chat here from Susan Frazier, asking, did you know before art school that you had this talent?
No, I did not. I think I was always an art appreciator. And actually, I have to confess that when I decided to go back to school, I wasn't really sure of what I wanted to do. I just knew I needed to do something. And I was very interested in either law school or art school, two totally different fields. And when I was speaking to a friend, psychotherapist, saying, I feel so torn and I have to make this decision. I feel passionate about both fields. What do I do? And she said to me, well, I'm going to tell you a very scientific way to make your choice. She said, when you're in nature, start thinking about each field. And then when the one that makes your heart beat faster, that's the one you will take. And very scientific, right? And that's exactly what I did. I happened to be in Asheville, North Carolina at that time. And I was taking a walk. My husband was attending a meeting, and I was taking a walk in a beautiful park. And I started thinking about my future as a lawyer. And then I started thinking about my future as an artist. And guess what? When I thought about art, honestly, my heart was pounding. So that was it. I made my choice, and I have never regretted it.
We have a couple of other comments on the chat box. One from Diane Wheatley, basically to everyone. She's just saying incredible work, Maria, and thank you for expressing women's issues so well. And another question from Maria Saraceno. Do you plan on any other social justice pieces?
I don't think, let me think a second about that. It had to be Viviana asking me that question. Viviana is my youngest child.
Okay.
I don't think I have anything planned right now, but I would love to do something like that again. Right now, what I'm doing is still forming community by organizing activities for groups of neighbors and friends, but not specifically social justice work.
Okay.
But thank you, Viviana, for your question.
And I have a question, and maybe it's triggered by my having just read a book about a very traditional Italian family, starting with a teenage girl and her parents. She's first generation in the US, and just how traditional and controlling and patriarchal the family was. How or who influenced you at the age of 19 to come to the States and to be so untraditional, if you will, from what I've read about Italian upbringings and daughters and such. And I've traveled there and gotten very nasty looks from older Italian women when I was on a bicycle cruising through a town. So I'm curious about, if it's not too personal, that background.
No, it's fine. What happened is I met an Italian American boy, because he was a boy and I was 15. He was 18. 4 years prior to my moving to the States, and he lived in the Washington D.C. area, and we fell in love, and we corresponded. And then I visited him in the U.S. in 1968. And in 1969, he came to Italy and we got engaged. And in 1970, he came to Italy again and we got married. And then I came to the US as a 19-year-old. I got married very young.
Growing up, were there women in your community where you lived in Italy that had similar progressive approaches to life and expressing women's issues and social justice?
So I grew up in Southern Italy until I was 10. And then when I was 10 and a half, we moved to Northern Italy. So they're two different worlds. The South was very traditional and backwards, and Northern Italy was much more progressive. And I had both of those experiences. So I kind of immigrated twice in my life, because it was like going to a different country when I went to Northern Italy. And I had went to high school, middle school and high school in Torino. And yes, my mom was always very progressive. My mom was a working woman when women didn't work. And in fact, my mom even hesitated to tell her family down in Southern Italy that she was working. She was working full time because she was afraid of how she would be judged. And so I had my mom as a role model, and yes, friends in high school who were very much like-minded in terms of progressive. And we didn't necessarily speak about social justice. Now, we were teenagers and just interested in having fun and interested in boys. So we didn't talk about that so much, but it was definitely a different world, much more progressive, much more modern.
Okay, well, I'm glad you had those influences and made that move, because your art is just amazing.
Thank you, Diane.
Another comment here from Sylvia Russo, just thanking you so much for a wonderful creative program, inspiring that you pursued a different second career. So to all women out there, whatever age, there's no limits to pursuing a second career.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't see anything else on the chat, but I definitely want to thank you. And you might want to tell folks, if they have never gone to the Art Center's Wearable Art. I just learned today, and I'm sharing this with the other people still online, that Maria was also involved in, about 10 years ago, the Wearable Art Program, which is an annual fundraiser held at the community center. It's usually held in August, and I don't know yet this year if we'll be able to do it. But there's lots of online information about past wearable arts, so you could look those up if you have an interest in checking out what Maria might have done 10 years ago and other ones. And I see another chat pop up here, so let me see who that is. From Michelle Albers. Brava, Maria, brilliant work and a wonderful presentation. And just to let you know, Maria, I will be sharing the various chat comments with you, as well as everybody will be able to go online if they want to look at the presentation again. It'll be posted on the DFAC's website. There's a little icon under YouTube. So all of these presentations, if you missed past ones, you can go in and look at our YouTube and look at previous Coffee and Conversation presentations. So
And thank you, Michelle.
Yes. Okay. So if anybody else wants to unmute themselves and just say a fond farewell, or Linda Whitmerhouse has also said thanks very much to everyone here and to Maria, our presenter. So at this point, I don't think there's lots of other questions, but let me take a look. Another chat. Just more appreciations and great
Great
job.
job, Mom.
Oh, thank you.
Great job, Maria. Great job.
Good job.
It was great to see your son, now your daughter on here.
Yeah. Thank you.
The
Thank you.
wonders of Zoom.
Franco. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Diane.
Well, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Thank
to
you.
know you briefly, and I'm going to have to come and check out some of your exhibits. I love your work. So unless
Thank
anybody else has questions, you all see her contact information. So if you want to personally, here's another one from John, and I believe it's your son in California. Thank you for your authenticity is what he is saying. And he loves you. So I think.
Oh, that's sweet. That's my nephew in California.
Your
Thank you, Franco.
Okay. Well, you all can see her contact info. So if you do have later questions, feel free to email her. I'm sure she'd welcome them. Franco, is that the son that's now I see visible?
Yeah.
Okay. You can unmute yourself, Franco, if you want to say something personal. You can always talk to her personally without our Zoom.
Wait a second, wait a second. Franco, you gonna say something or am I?
I just did.
Oh, I missed it.
I didn't hear. Franco, what did you say?
I just said I love you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Franco.
Love you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Well,
Thank
looks
you.
like we're down to a home reunion right now, so
Yeah.
I think I will I will go ahead and close this off. But thank you all for coming, and it's nice to meet some of Maria's family. So
Thank you.
thank you. I'm going to shut it down now, folks.
Okay.
Okay, take care.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye. Ciao.